It is 1992 in a converted barn of a recording studio in the English countryside, and a young guitarist is about to try to ruin the most important song of his life. He does not know that yet. Nobody in the room does. To them, this is just a slow, pretty little number. The singer wrote 4 chords. A sad voice, nothing that sounds like a hit. The band is nobody. The album is going nowhere. And the song drifting out of the speakers is so gentle, so quiet, that the guitarist standing in the corner has started to hate it. So he lifts his guitar, and right before the chorus, he slams the strings as hard as he can. 3 ugly, violent chunks of noise. Ka-chunk. Ka-chunk. He is not playing a part. He is trying to break the song. He wants to make it sound wrong. That sound, that act of spite, is now one of the most recognized moments in modern rock. We will get to why he did it, but not yet. Because here is the strange thing about this song. It was never really theirs to begin with, and within a year the band that recorded it would be trying to bury it, refusing to play it, begging the world to let them move on. This is not a story about a hit. It is not a story about 4 chords. It is not even a story about a guitar noise made out of anger. This is the story of a band that tried to destroy the one song that would define them for the rest of their lives, and lost. The band is Radiohead. The song is Creep, and almost everything you think you know about it starts with a mistake. To understand the song, you have to understand the person who wrote it. And the person who wrote it did not feel special at all. His name is Thom Yorke. Years before that studio session, he was a student at a university in the south of England, a small, sharp, watchful young man with a lazy eye. He had endured operations for as a child, the kind of person who stands at the edge of a party, rather than in the middle of it. By his own account, he knew what it felt like to want to belong somewhere, to want someone, and to feel deep down that you had no right to, that you did not fit, that you were the wrong shape for the room. That feeling is the whole song. When Thom sings, "I wish I was special," he is not being clever. He is telling the truth, and that is the part people get wrong about Creep. You hear the ugly word in the title and think it is a song about self-hatred. It is not entirely. Listen again. It is a song about longing. It is about standing across a room from a life you desperately want and believing you will never be allowed to walk into it. You have felt that. Almost everyone has. That is why it works. Now picture the band around him in 1992. Radiohead were nobodies. A 5-piece from Oxford with a record deal, a debut album half finished, and absolutely nothing to prove they mattered. No hits, no hype. The pressure of a group that senses the window might close before it ever really opened. And Creep almost did not make the record at all. Here is what almost nobody knows. The take that became the song was captured almost by accident. The band ran through it during a session, loose, unguarded, half of it played live in the room, and the 2 American producers working with them, Paul Coldery and Sean Slade, did not even recognize it as an original. The story they have told is that they assumed it was a cover, something old. A Scott Walker song, maybe. It sounded too finished, too aching, too unlike everything else the band had brought in. So they let the tape roll on a song they thought belonged to somebody else. They were more right than they knew. But we will come back to that. Because there is a craft secret hiding in plain sight here, and it is almost insultingly simple. The entire song is built on 4 chords. 4. They loop over and over from the first second to the last. There is no clever bridge, no key change, no trick section. On paper, it should be boring. A first-year music student could play it in an afternoon, and yet you cannot stop listening to it, which raises a question that will not leave you alone once you notice it. How do 4 simple chords played by a band that felt like nobodies, written by a man who felt like an outsider, recorded almost by mistake? How does that become one of the most famous songs on earth? The answer is in one wrong note, and in a guitarist who was about to lose his temper. Before we open that up, let me say one quick thing. If you are the kind of person who has ever loved a song a little more than you were willing to admit, this whole channel is built for you. So if a story like this is your thing, subscribe and stick around, because the next part is the one that changes how you hear the song forever. Here is where we stand. A band of nobodies, a singer who felt like an outsider, a song recorded almost by accident that the producers assumed belonged to someone else. On paper, it should have vanished. Instead, it became inescapable, and the people who made it came to resent it more than anyone. So let's go back into that room, and let's find out what that guitarist did. The guitarist is Jonny Greenwood. He is the youngest in the band, the quiet one, the one who hears music differently than everyone else in the room, and by the accounts the band has given over the years. Jonny did not like Creep. Not the way it sat there soft and pretty and pleased with itself. It was too nice, too clean. It bored him, so he decided to attack it. Right before each chorus, he dug into the strings and hit those 3 dead, brutal chunks of noise. Not to add a part, but to spoil one. The story Radiohead have told is that Jonny was trying to sabotage the song to rough up something he found too polite. And here is the twist that no one saw coming. It worked in exactly the opposite way. That burst of violence became the trapdoor of the whole song. It is the moment your stomach drops. Take it out, and Creep is a nice ballad you forget by lunchtime. Leave it in and it grabs you by the collar. The band's biggest hook was an act of contempt, and this is where it gets strange. Because the same thing is true of the chords underneath it. Remember those 4 chords that just loop? Listen to what they actually do. The song starts warm and open. Then on the second chord it lifts somewhere unexpectedly bright, a chord that does not belong in a sad song at all. A little burst of hope like a door opening. And then on the 4th chord everything caves in. That last chord is the wrong one. It is borrowed from a darker, sadder version of the same key, a minor chord, where your ear is begging for a major one. You do not need to know its name, you just need to feel it because you already have. That 4th chord is the sound of the song sighing. It is hope, and then the collapse of hope, 4 times a minute for the entire length of the song. That is the whole emotional trick of Creep, and it is why 4 simple chords can break your heart when 100 complicated ones cannot. Hope. Then the fall, over and over. The music is doing exactly what the words are doing. Reaching for something beautiful and being pulled back down. Now sit with how much of this was on purpose. A singer writing from the loneliest place he knew. A guitarist trying to wreck the take. A borrowed chord that should feel wrong and instead feels like the truth. Producers who thought they were recording a cover. None of it was a plan. All of it was accident, instinct, and bad mood colliding at the exact right moment. But that phrase keeps coming back, doesn't it? Producers who thought they were recording a cover. Because it turns out they were closer to right than anyone in that room realized. The melody at the heart of Creep was not entirely Radiohead's. And that was about to become a very expensive problem. Creep came out in 1992, and it flopped. Not a quiet, respectable flop. It sank. The story that has followed the song ever since is that British radio found it too bleak, too depressing, and largely left it alone. A song about not belonging did not belong anywhere. The band went back to being nobodies. As far as anyone could tell, that was the end of it. And then the strangest thing happened. The song refused to die. It started catching on far from home on the radio in other countries, in places where a gloomy song by an unknown English band somehow found the exact people who needed to hear it. Word crept back across the water, and in 1993, the label did something bands rarely get a second chance. They released Creep again. This time it reached the top 10 in Britain. The song that flopped became the song you could not escape. Now watch the stakes climb. This is no longer just Thom's private ache or a band fighting for a career. This is a song going global, being sung back by thousands of people who each thought it was written about them. And that scale is exactly when the other shoe dropped. Remember the producers who swore it sounded like a cover. Remember me telling you the song was never entirely theirs. Here is why. The melody of Creep was too close to a song called The Air That I Breathe, written back in the early 1970s by Albert Hammond and Mike Hazelwood, and made famous by the Hollies. Close enough that a claim was made. And when the dust settled, 2 men who had nothing to do with Radiohead, who were writing love songs before Thom Yorke could walk, were added to the songwriting credits of Creep. They still get paid every time it plays. The band's most personal song was In the Eyes of the Law, partly somebody else's. And here is where it gets almost too perfect. Fast forward about 25 years. Radiohead are no longer nobodies, they are giants, one of the most respected bands alive. And reports surfaced that the Creep band is now on the other side of the very same argument, raising a claim That a Lana Del Rey song leaned too heavily on Creep. Radiohead side pushed back on the idea that they had filed any lawsuit at all, saying they had only asked for a credit. The details stayed murky, and no courtroom drama ever really landed. But the shape of it is impossible to forget. The song built out of a borrowed melody had come full circle, now the thing being borrowed. And through all of it, the band could not stand their own hit. They grew to hate being the Creep band. They pulled it from their set lists for years. They tried to walk away from it, and night after night crowds would chant it back at them anyway, refusing to let them leave it behind. They had tried to sabotage the song in the studio. Now they were trying to sabotage it on stage, and they failed both times for the same reason. Because Creep was never really theirs anymore. It is not a song about Thom Yorke. It is not a song about a band from Oxford. It is not even a song about a girl in a room. It is a song about you every time you have stood at the edge of something you wanted and felt like you had no right to walk toward it. The band wrote down a feeling they thought was theirs alone. It turned out to belong to everyone, and you cannot take back a gift like that. The audience won't let you. So what do you actually walk away with after all of that? 3 things. First, the hit that Radiohead hated was almost an accident from beginning to end, recorded half by chance, spiked with a guitar part played out of spite, and in the end credited in part to 2 songwriters who were never even in the room. The most famous version of the band's story is really a story about losing control of it. Second, the craft. Creep is proof that you don't need complexity to break a heart. One borrowed chord placed where it hurts will beat 100 clever ones. The wrong note in the right place tells the truth. And third, the one that stays with you. You do not get to choose which of your creations the world falls in love with. Sometimes it is the one you are proudest of. And sometimes it is the one you are ashamed of, the one you tried to bury, the one you played badly on purpose. The band spent years running from Creep. They were running from the most honest thing they ever made. So let me ask you, what is a song you were a little embarrassed to love until you realized everyone else secretly loved it too? Tell me down in the comments, because in the end the Creep in the song was never Thom Yorke. It was never the band. It was all of us standing at the edge of the room wishing we were special, singing along.